it's your good friend, Mama T. This is Teresa Renner coming to you live from my home office. And I have somebody incredibly special in the house today. And we are going to do our old school conversations with my friend Bradley here. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. We weirdly go way back. And we're just starting to get to know each other all at the same time. And that's how life happens sometimes. And I just feel so blessed that he agreed to come on Old School Dance Fitness to talk a little bit about that convergence between dance and life and how important it is to understand, how the two work together and kind of can inform a really beautiful and connected life. So Bradley, if you would say a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Teresa. It's great to be talking with you again. So my name is Bradley Rapier. I actually grew up in Canada, and my background was an academic one. I was going to be a doctor like my father. I was studying that way, smart kid, athlete and an academic. That was my upbringing. And I was when I grew up there, I was the only kid with a sweet afro in my area. So there was a bit of a cultural difference in my home to my friends, but I had great friends, certainly great life. Some things in the household made me a bit of an anxious child in terms of I'm the youngest. There's some things between my siblings and my parents, divorce that made me a bit unsure of some things. So I had a bit of a background that was great on the outside, a little bit of things were troubling on the inside, but I was geared towards being a doctor like my father and my uncle, my whole lineage. And then later on, very late for me in that way, getting into university, I was approached by a guy that back then, this is years ago, who was one of the first pioneers in Canada learning how to do what's called popping. They approached me, they knew me from the school I had went to, got me involved, and we became a pioneering group in Canada called Streetscape. It was actually the first and foremost funk styles group up there. We had a pretty cool career. This is back in the 80s. That ended, and I was then on the search though, because I realized that what got me is when I saw him dancing, the one person that grabbed me, his name's Colin Bludoff. And I was minding my own business, studying at school, and I liked school, I liked sciences, I liked what I was taking. I wasn't upset with where I was headed. I liked the sports I did. But when he got in front of me, that one day, and again, back, if you're from the old school, that there was no DVD, no way to look at the stuff. It didn't exist. Where I lived, nothing like this exists. We knew funk, and we knew a bit of the Motown vibe, but we did not see and know what popping, locking, street dance was.
Right, so that's your experience in Canada.
Yes, that was in Canada.
I had the opposite experiences that's what we were all doing in the street. And we didn't see it reflected. We didn't see our lives on TV. We didn't see that reflected. Like, that's just what we were doing.
Well, yeah. And so if it wasn't in your neighborhood, you heard whispers. And so when he came in, I think it was like 81, and he started pop, and he started pop for me. Well, you have to understand, this is where I got the hairstyle from. I was like, what just happened? What did he do? It didn't make any sense. But what really happened for me was I had already I'd known what grooves were from my older sister and Motown and some things like that, Jackson 5, but still I wasn't doing a lot of dance. I wasn't a dancer at all. Right. When he did that, something happened where it was beyond what he was doing. There's something behind, there was a freedom, there was a thing that I just was drawn to. So that changed my life. I changed my life. And went a totally different direction. My dad was not too happy. And I went down the road of chasing and going after this street dance culture and diving into the culture deeply. And as I traveled through Canada, that's a lot of story there. But then I eventually got down to the States, through New York, got to Los Angeles. Now I sort of learned a lot, but I found the idea of what the groove was, what the deeper idea of this dance was that I had not had in my life. And I have a phrase that I say, as I ended up coming to LA and I ended up doing started a gathering there that grew into this movement that helped to create a form called the Groovaloos, and helped to later launch groups like the Beat Freaks, and was partnered with people like Jabwalkies and Super Crew. We were all in this pool of this gathering spot. I saw, and then from that launched me into working in New York on Broadway shows and working with the highest levels of people, the director of Hamilton and Superstars, working with all these people. But I saw this common theme from the same day I saw my friend that danced on the campus, Colin Blutoff, that as I watched that I realized it's not the move, it's the groove. That in life, it's not the move, it's the groove. That if you live your life or dance based on moves, you run out of moves. Or the weight of trying to memorize what moves you've got to do in life will stress you out, burn you out. But once you connect to and dance with that larger groove, you can dance through life all day. And I saw that happening. I watched how when I was in the groove, when I was out of the groove, when I was connected, when I wasn't connected. And I saw that I was still learning. I was still dancing and performing partly from a place of surface where I wasn't fully deep in it. And I kept working to see and finally arriving at a place. And it's not an ending. It's a continual journey, but understanding all the time, where's the groove in my life? I will say that when I talk about the groove, I mean this endless groove rolled up from the beginning of time with multiple expressions unique to each of us. And I don't mean just music, I mean sound and light and color and vibrations and frequencies and interactions and conversations. I love this quote that actually Nikola Tesla says, that great guy that, about electricity. He says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Nikola Tesla. And I think that from the beginning of time that everything came forth, the sounds, the lights, the vibrations, the frequencies, the math equations, everything that was there in the beginning. And we have a chance to see that larger groove, sense it in our lives. And so my journey through the work I've been able to do as an assistant director and as a choreographer and a producer and all those things, working in the TV world from the So You Think You Can Dances to the Broadway world and creating shows there, I've sensed the greatness of knowing about this larger groove that is eternal, that moves forever, that moves, we can maybe get into this, but moves themselves are very important. They're valuable. They're things like your knowledge and your training and your skills, your passion. These things are valuable, but you can't lead life leading through these, and they don't have sustaining power, and they won't have an ability to impact others because they don't have that power. You've got to be connected to the source, to the groove, and choose to see that.
It's an interesting parallel to other things in life in the sense that, like in dance, you can get so consumed with trying to do the choreography just perfectly the way that you were taught to do it, that watching you do it is kind of boring. It's perfect, but I'm not connecting with you.
Yeah.
Right? And so whereas somebody else could not do the choreography perfect, but they're so in their body and feeling what they're doing, and they're just expressing themselves, and you can just watch that dancer forever. And like, that's true of a speaker, a public speaker. It's true of a leader. It's true, like there's that person they're saying the right words, but you're not connecting with them. And there's that person that's just tapped into their own rhythm and authenticity and really connecting.
I call myself a groove orchestrator. When I say that, it's the idea that there's obviously the larger groove that's playing a melody for each of us that we can connect to, but a strength of mine, an ability that I think we all can have, is able to see what is happening in any scenario. For me, it's been a lot, obviously artistically, but just to look at it and see where it needs a little more of this, a little bit of that, little dabble of that, watch the elements come together, rather than I used to be kind of fixated with what you just said. When I choreographed things initially in my career, I thought I'd do every step and have it all just set. And yes, planning is important. You got to have some stuff ready. But I realized how much more valuable it was when I invited the people into the process and gave an atmosphere where they could contribute in a way where they're gonna, if I allow them to be who they are, then they're gonna do stuff, and then I can design that stuff into a place that's just so much stronger. And so that's the groove orchestration. And then I call myself a freestyle activator, in that my goal, and when I work with anybody, anything I do, talking to you and with people watching, is just having them be okay. Yes, let me start into this. This is something I want to move right away from a observer to a participant. I want to see them understand how they can freestyle now in what they do. I mean, I went through a lot of levels of teaching at universities. I still do that. I taught at USC in different places, to speaking at places, and just being able to trust that as I walk in my life, the freestyle aspect is that as I take each step, I trust that the cement's going to harden just before I step there, because I trained in freestyle. And knowing your background, we've been trained in freestyle, but you can all learn that ability to freestyle. It's not something that's far from you. And then I also am a person that believes in the greater, that there's greatness, there's things to see, that it goes beyond what we do. Yeah, so it's really an amazing thing you're doing. This is awesome.